In this video, we are going to learn how to simplify products of radical expressions. So we are going to multiply radical expressions. For this first one, what is the simplified form of each expression? So we see the square root of 10 out front of a parentheses. And in that parentheses, we have a sum. So what we're going to do with this square root of 10 is we are going to distribute it, and we are going to multiply it by both numbers on the inside. So first, we're going to multiply square root of 10 times the square root of 3. I'm just going to write that out before we actually multiply it. Square root of 10 times the square root of 3. And then we have plus the square root of 10 times just 3. So if we have the square root of 10 times 3, that's our step of distributing. Then remember in the first lesson that we were able to multiply two numbers that are both underneath the square root. So we can actually put all of this, the 10 and the 3, underneath the same square root. And then we have the plus sign. And then we can't do the same thing with this square root of 10 and the 3, because this 3 doesn't have a square root around it. So mathematically, we like to write the numbers without the square root first, and then square root of 10 second. So all I did there was switch the order. We can't multiply them because one has a square root and the other number does not have a square root. So now you're looking at the square root of 10 times 3. We're looking at this first one, which we can simplify down to the square root of 30 plus 3 square root of 10. You have to double check and look at both 30 and 10. And for this first 30, you have to think, are there any perfect squares that divide into 30? And if there are, you would have to simplify this down further. In this case, we don't have to simplify it further because there are no perfect square factors of 30. And then the same thing holds true with 10. Think of your factors of 10. Are any of those perfect squares? And actually, we could write the perfect squares along the bottom to remind us. The perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. We can go further than that, but looking at all of these numbers on the bottom, none of those numbers divide into either 10 or 30. So we are good. This is our final answer here. We can't simplify it down any further. So now let's do the same thing with the square root of 2 times the square root of 5 plus square root of 6. So if we distribute this, we have the square root of 2 times the square root of 5 plus, and if that was a minus sign there, you would have minus. So if this plus sign here was minus, you would have a minus sign in between. But then we take square root of 2 times the square root of 6. We look at this first part of the sum, square root of 2 and square root of 5, they're both underneath the square root. So we can multiply them. We can do 2 times 5, which is 10, plus, and then square root of 2 and square root of 6 are both underneath the square root as well. So we can multiply those two together to get 12. because 2 times 6 is 12. So now we have to simplify the square roots if possible. So look at your 10. Are there any numbers down here that divide into 10? 10 divided by 9 doesn't work. 10 divided by 4 doesn't work. 10 divided by 1, that works, but it doesn't get us anywhere. So now look at the 12. 12 divided by 4 works. So we're going to split this square root up into the square root of 4 and the square root of 3. And then plus square root of 10 doesn't change. So we have square root of 10 plus square root of 4. That is equal to 2. And then square root of 3 doesn't simplify. And then that's as far as we can take it. So that would be our answer there.